10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us? Welcome back to 10 Steps Further, second one day. We replaced Chad.
2 in a day.
We replaced Chad with Lesley Hyatt.
And we got coffee.
And we had some coffee, a little bit.
Yeah.
It was good. Mm-hmm. It's much better than the coffee I make at home.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah. We got a new coffee pot, and I haven't figured it out just so much yet. And it's terrible every time I make it, but I drink it. I don't like coffee, but I drink more than any other
I don't know if
human.
the 10 Steps people know that I'm a good coffee maker.
Yeah, we do a French press.
We do.
Most podcasts, we do a French press.
Yeah.
That's an important fact. You definitely need to know.
I'm creamer, Jonathan's not. You could probably tell that.
I'm a black coffee type of guy. I don't know why, because I really don't like coffee. I've never said, oh, coffee's good.
Oh, it's so weird.
It's a supplement to me. I like caffeine.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like coffee is probably the healthiest version of caffeine, because everything else is like synthetic for
sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're a sugar person. Like, you got to have something in you. What is your Starbucks drink, Lesley?
My Starbucks drink is an Americano with 2 pumps of toffee nut.
Yes, I've had that.
Right.
I've had the
cream,
Leslie
and cream.
I've had the Leslie drink before.
It's a good
It's
one.
good?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
It's good. It's not my favorite. My favorite is 2 pumps of white mocha.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Iced Americano, 2 pumps white mocha.
Yeah.
Depending on the size. Sometimes I'll go venti.
I almost feel like, so my wife works at Starbucks, and I get fatty discounts and oftentimes free drinks,
right.
Based on whatever. But so sometimes I feel like I'm getting ripped off, because I've now gotten to the point where I'll just take a tall coffee, black, and I just am like, really? I'm getting a $2 drink when I could have anything I want from this place. So
I know. Every once in a while, you just need to get a Frappuccino with extra whipped cream and sprinkles.
Well, my I want to feel terrible for the rest of the day, but it tastes really good drink is a black and white mocha. Like, I'll go full on.
That's like
triple shot.
So much sugar.
It is so much. Like, just pump a whole bunch of chocolate in there, and then get some white chocolate in there. Put some whipped cream on top.
You kind of get sick of drinking Starbucks when you work there. I worked there for a year. And you kind of are like, do I want more coffee? I think I'm good.
Yeah, and then you
can
have a
have
headache
them.
your entire shift if you don't have coffee. Yeah, I get it.
Anyway.
So
coffee.
Here's the question. Is God judgy?
Okay.
I don't think we want to think of God as judgy.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you today, definitively, that absolutely, yes, 100%. That he's judgy, and I think that there are going to be people that don't like that.
Okay,
but we're going to explore this coffee
by judgy.
We're going to explore this coffee.
He can't get off of coffee.
Explore this topic. We've already explored coffee.
Yeah.
I believe that as people we are by nature separators.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And it starts here.
Okay.
Your silverware.
Right.
You got the little plastic thing. I can almost go ahead. Look at home. I can almost positively guarantee you that thing's dirty. That you haven't cleaned it out in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Where do the dust particles come from? Like, it's like grains of sand in the spoon spot.
I clean these and I put them in here.
Yeah.
Right?
Because your drawer stays open sometimes, and then all the other little stuff falls
from
in
the
it.
counter?
Probably.
Okay.
We don't want our silverware fraternized. We don't want our knives hanging out with our forks. We want them all separate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not only that, but we have other drawers that we have to separate things from as well. Like, it's just who we are.
Or if you're like me or any of my kids, you've got a spot on the floor for different things.
A spot on the floor. Oh, dear.
I knew Leslie would like that. Don't be judgy. Only God can judge.
Right, okay.
Your cupboards are segregated, right?
Okay.
Drinking glasses and coffee mugs. I don't think they should fraternize.
It's
they're
hard.
separate
We got
in our
so
house.
many of them. We've got 5 people in our house. Why do we have 60 cups?
Because they probably each use 4 a day instead of the same water cup.
I can't drink water out of my milk cup.
Here are the ones that probably my wife is over.
Yeah.
Every time I go to a sporting event, I get a cup representing Notre Dame or Michigan or whatever, and they sit way at the very top.
Okay.
And they get really ugly, very long time. It's like a 50-cent cup,
So they
but I
need
got
to be
keep
separated,
it.
is what you're saying?
They probably
They
do.
should be separated?
We separate our laundry.
Yeah.
We don't want our whites with our colors.
Racist
This
laundry.
is very racist.
Or because you don't want it to turn pink, but, you know.
Yes. And I'm just going to say, like newly married couples, husband, just throw one red thing in with the whites. You will never have to do laundry again.
Oh,
yeah, well.
Grocery stores are segregated. You know.
Cereal aisle versus...
Do you have a favorite aisle?
Oh.
Ooh.
Ice cream aisle.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If I lead with ice cream
I like
aisle.
the bakery area. That's
Ooh.
always
Yeah,
fun.
that's
Like
good.
rolling through, you're like, well, I didn't really want anything, but
Yeah.
this coffee cake looks amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm there.
That's true.
Last time I did that, I looked up, like, I love carrot cake, and then now they put calorie counts on that thing.
Oh.
And it was like 1,100 calories. For
You're like,
a
do
piece
I
of
like it that
carrot
much?
cake.
Ben and Jerry's fish food ice cream is like 1,400 calories. One
Fish
sitting, I'll just
food?
do. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I bet you that's 2 servings. You look at it. I bet you it's 2 servings.
like
I
twice
bet you it's
that.
like twice that.
That's my
What's
sit
fish
down.
food?
It's like Ben and Jerry. It's kind of Rocky Roadish because it's got some marshmallow swirl in there, caramel, chocolate fish.
So,
Phish. I think it's from the band. Fish.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know. I just know it's the best kind.
So
just go right there.
we separate. We separate the men from the boys, the mice from the men, the shirts from the skins, the contenders from the pretenders, the haves from the have-nots, the fact from the fiction, the trash from the recyclables, and the shampoo from the conditioner, unless we buy Pert, because then it's all in one.
There you go.
And Jonathan has nothing, no idea.
I know nothing about that. I haven't used
Like,
conditioner.
we're
on my head
okay
for a while.
separating. We're not okay with this separating. Matthew 25. Jesus says this, all right? When the Son of Man comes in his glory, all right? This is the end.
Mm-hmm.
When he comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats.
Mm-hmm.
He'll put the sheep on his right, goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you are blessed by my Father. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." And it doesn't turn out so good for the goats. Now,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, this feels like an ugly side of God.
Uh-huh.
He does things that we hate. He separates. You know, we're okay with it, with silverware, laundry, but people,
Right.
you know, segregation
Mm-hmm.
is an ugly word, racism.
Mm-hmm.
People separate by race, sex, country, economic status, popularity, but we really don't like that.
Right.
So, wow, who's good, who's not? Okay, first up, Jonathan, you would know this. Answer this. What's the deal with goats? Why are the goats always the bad one? You grew up on a farm.
Yeah, well, what's funny is goats are a little bit more free range. Like I mean, the sheep will, but the goats can jump things. Goats, for whatever reason, when we had goats, they climb on stuff. Everything, like all the cars have a goat on the top of it because most of our animals would just kind of stay around. We didn't have we had a lot of land, and they would just kind of come and go if we'd feed them. But the
So
goats. The goats, like if you came to visit, I remember as a kid, people would come up, they'd drive our long driveway up the mountain to come up to our house and visit us, and we'd be eating dinner and look out the window, and we got a goat standing on their car. Yeah, welcome. You know, that's the goats. Yeah, but the goats were a lot less, I don't know. I mean, they were a little bit more free, which is kind of interesting in the picture.
Right.
don't you feel like when you go to a petting zoo, there's like, you know, different animals that are like trying to snuggle, or like you give them food and they come over to you. And I feel like the goats are just like, I don't give a.
Yeah, kind of the
They're
cat
like,
of
if
the
you don't give me food,
farm
I'll just eat your shirt. Like, you don't have to give me food. You don't
There
have
is
to touch.
that.
Like, they're kind of just like, whatever. I'll do whatever I
They're
want.
super cute when they're little, as most animals are. But
yeah. Then
but
they grow up with those ugly
they
rectangle eyes.
they get weird looking creatures. They for sure are.
They're pretty similar, but I think the difference. Oh, okay. Well, here's another difference, right? If you're watching a TV show and there is an alternate universe with the evil character always has a goatee.
Yeah. And I think the bigger difference that we didn't see as much is probably that sheep are a little bit more, they're easier to lead. They're more gentle animals. Our experience was not that. We've got, some of the listeners have heard before, we had a black sheep named Michael Jackson. He was a ram, and he was the meanest animal we had. The only thing that even came close were the geese. Of the
Yeah, geese are bad.
Yeah, and he was brutal. And yeah, but I think generally speaking, shepherds would have multiple sheep that they would raise from, the time they were born, and they're actually a more trainable animal, and they're more relational to people.
Yeah, by nature they're more followers than
Yeah.
goats are.
Yeah,
Right. I
Yeah.
think maybe that's the point.
yeah,
I don't know if
Perhaps.
I don't know if it's a clear, like
Yeah.
if you have a goat you love, okay, great, we love you, that's fine. But the point is, he does separate. So, is God judgy?
yeah,
100%,
yeah.
right? And we don't like any of this. What is it? What is this about us that we don't like the most, Lesley?
Well, I think that when we think of a person who is judgmental, often we don't like that person who's judgmental because they tend to be like arrogant, harsh, not loving, somebody that's walks around and they kind of think they're superior to everybody else. And so being a judgmental person is not a compliment by any stretch of the imagination.
I love that guy. He's so judgmental.
That guy's so
He
judgmental.
really
I
could.
love him.
He separates well.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
different people that we know.
So I think that that's hard for people to reconcile, is that we love the idea of our God being loving and forgiving and caring and, relational. And those are not the same qualities that we would identify as like a person who is judgmental. And so I think the idea of saying that our God is judgmental is hard because you don't generally like people who are judgmental.
It's funny. Think about Simon Cowell, right? I mean, that guy,
Right.
the American Idol,
Yeah.
super judgmental.
He was the guy. He was the number one reason why people watched.
Yeah,
Yeah, nobody
It's
liked him, but-
Yeah,
because
that is
because
interesting.
everybody.
That doesn't help this conversation one bit.
but here's where I would go with that. Like, it's really interesting because I've not met a lot of people who are like, oh, I super love him.
Yeah.
But he was right most of the time. Like, he was actually really good at identifying who was good and who was not good. And he could put people in the camp of, you could be a star and don't ever sing again. And the audience is like, it's true. Somebody's got to tell him. But people didn't like him. But what's, I think, more interesting is the artists who would be up there performing, like Paula Abdul would be like, oh, you're so cute. You're so good. They didn't care.
Yeah. They just
All
wanted
they
to know
cared
what he
about
said.
was, did I get Simon?
Yeah.
Right. That's
Does
true.
Simon like me?
Yep. Yep.
Like,
I
so
know.
there's something about like we don't like judgmental when it's negative, but man, when it's exclusive and I'm in the club,
Right.
we love that.
Well, I from the time your kids are little, I do this all day long. They're like,
Yeah.
he stepped on the line. He's out, right? Like, he's out, Mom. Like, they want me to judge that. And they're
Yeah.
like, I said this and he did this and then he said that. And so I'm right. Like, that your kids want you to judge everything from, we don't teach them that.
Right.
But they want to be judged to know, like, but I'm on the winning side, right? But
Right.
like, I did it right. I'm actually,
Yeah.
So let's talk about some words we don't like. Other words.
Okay.
All right. So
Okay.
judgmental, we don't like that one.
Right.
Right? If that's you, we don't like that one. Here's another word that we don't want anybody to take away our freedom. That's not one word. I don't know what that would be. But
Right.
like, I'll give you some words. Slavery.
Right?
That's an awful word.
Yeah.
We don't like trafficking.
Right. Oppression.
Right. We don't like
Yeah.
words like divorce when you didn't get to choose. When your spouse chose that they don't like you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bad word. We don't like to be dismissed. We don't like to be fired. We don't like to be ticketed or arrested.
or
Right.
submissive.
Yeah,
Right.
well, that's true. Or incarcerated,
Right.
or abandoned.
Okay.
In each of these moments in our lives, you didn't get the opportunity to choose. Okay?
Okay.
Those, to me, are some really nasty, ugly words.
Okay.
And these are words that God doesn't like either.
Okay.
He values your ability to choose. But because of that, you get to choose. Follow him, not follow him.
Right.
Your choice.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. One of the things that, like raising kids, one of the things that I've really, really tried hard to do is because I feel like God has this way about him where it's like, here's my way, here's the other way. The other way hurts a lot more.
Yep.
And so I've tried to communicate it that way where it's like, I remember before I was married, I was working somewhere and this lady comes in and she's like, "Oh, if my husband finds out, he's going to kill me." And she was like, she's like, "Oh no," and I don't even know it wasn't like some immoral thing. It was like a purchase she made at the place I was working. And I just remember thinking, I don't ever want my wife to ever make that statement about anything ever. Like, and I wasn't even married. I just I don't ever want that. And so I kind of feel like that's, I want when my kids get in trouble because they did the other way, I want them to know they're not in trouble because I'm going to kill them. They're in trouble because they did the other way.
Right.
Like, that way leads to pain. It's just, that's the way it is. It leads to, so I don't want them to think of me as, because I don't even, in that sense, I don't even know that I think of God as judgy, as like, you didn't do what I said, so here's the result, as much as it's like, no, that's the other way.
Would you agree with this statement? That generally we are punished by our sin more than for our sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why he's trying to keep us from it, right?
Yeah.
I lied, and I lied again, and I lied again, and now people don't trust me. Why don't they trust me? Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important to understand that because if we keep getting a certain result, maybe a simple examination of behavior will tell you why you're getting the result you're getting over and over and over and over again. Sometimes it is that very thing of just like, it feels like there's condemnation and judgment. Is like, is God against me? Why is everything not going my way? And with careful examination, oftentimes you will find that there's a reason.
So what's the connection between freedom and judgment? God hates things that steal our freedom. He values our freedom. He wants us to be able to choose whatever we want. The reason why he came down is he wanted us to be able, why we even initiated a relationship, why there was even a tree in the garden, because it wasn't true love unless you could actually choose, right? It's like the difference between marriage and arranged marriage. Marriage, you think, you hope you have two people that love each other, fall in love, and get married. Arranged marriage is just is a thing. It just happened. There was no freedom in that. It was just you. This was chosen for you.
Right.
So how are those two connected? Do I need to connect the dots for you?
Yeah.
All right. So if God is going to allow us freedom, then we have to be able to choose him or not him. And if we get to the end of life where he has created a heaven, then he's going to want the people there that have chosen him. And the other people, well, they've chosen as well. They've spent their whole life pushing him away. Their whole life saying, God, I don't want him a part of my life. And they will finally get what they've always wanted, a life without God. And the way God explains that is that's hell, or that's like this burning fire, which the way I interpret that, and you might disagree with me, is desires that are never fully satisfied. And when we have God, he gives us desires that are fully satisfied. When we try to do it on our own, we try to fill our lives with alcohol and never really satisfied. Fill our lives with sex, never really satisfied. Money never really quite gets us where we need to go. So for us, if there's actual heaven, then who's going to populate it? Give us your Hitler illustration.
Well, before we started, we made this discussion a little bit, but just having this, I think people want like we have this idea of like, oh, there shouldn't be judgment. God, how can God judge? And in reality, like I think you put Hitler on the map, or anybody like that, the guys who flew planes into the World Trade Centers or anything like that, you start saying, okay, there has to be justice, there has to be judgment. And that those two things are kind of the same, right? If somebody breaks into your house or somebody harms somebody that you love, you're not okay with the fact that there's no judgment.
Right.
You're not okay with that. Like when you look at somebody
so much so that if you have a weapon in your hand and somebody is trying to murder your family, you will use that weapon to protect the people that you value.
Right.
In some ways, that's what we're talking about. And what I read from yours is you don't want to get to heaven and your bunk mate's Hitler.
We're in the same, like, wait. I mean, I knew I didn't do perfectly. But
yeah. I think that if people are actually like introspective, and Jonathan, I feel like you talk about this a lot, it feels a little bit nerve-wracking to stop and think like, ooh, am I going to make it? Because like all of us suck and mess up so many times. And I think that's the part and then I think naturally we try to go to think of like we try to be the judge. We try to think like, well, what about this person? What about this person? And we try to put things in their boxes and separate them. Anybody who's done this is never going to heaven. Anybody who doesn't do this is never going to heaven, or whatever that looks like. And so I think that sometimes the idea of judgment from God's about heaven and hell and all that scares people because they question like, ooh, am I going to make it? Like, like I've messed up so many times. Like, how do I know if I'm going to be there? Or the other side of like, I think sometimes people look at Christians as judgmental because they can place themselves in a camp. And then within that camp, they're like, everybody who does this or everybody who doesn't do this is certainly not going to heaven. Right. And I think that's a really bad place to be when we try to be the judge. And I think that's why people don't like the idea of God being judgmental, because
I'm convinced that every interaction, if you were to have a face-to-face with Jesus, every interaction with Jesus should leave us at a place that says, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to make it.
Right.
And that's actually the place of strength. It's the place we're most trying to not be, but it's the place of victory. Like Hitler, if Hitler stands before Jesus and says, I can't do it without you, Hitler makes it before me. Like Jesus even says it. He says to the religious leaders of his day, he said the tax collectors who they hated because they were traitors of their own people, and the prostitutes will enter into the kingdom before you, he says to the religious leaders, because they will come in a spirit of brokenness and say, I can't get in unless you get me in the door. So it's not an idea of us being like we're not one-upping each other, and I scored more points and I committed less fouls than you, so I get to go into heaven and you don't get to go into heaven. It's every single one of us gets to a place where we say, I too have failed, and we, under his judgment, recognize that we have failed. And in that moment, like, we might find ourselves for a bit at this place of like desperation of, I'm terrible, I'm a terrible person. That's a place of health. Like Jesus tells the story of the tax collector and the Pharisee. And the Pharisee goes into the church and he prays and thank you, God, that you made me this. I'm good in every way. I got my ducks in a row. And the tax collector stands afar off, not even willing to come close. And he says, have mercy on me, a sinner. And Jesus says, that's the one that God will listen to.
Right.
And so we got to be like, that's where we're after, I think.
Right. I was hoping to get to this at the end, like the big powerful punch. But
right.
We're already getting there. So that's good because
sure. Thank you for listening.
You can't make it on your own. It's not like I got enough things lined up and walked enough old ladies across the street.
Right.
Like, have you ever walked an old lady across? I've never done that. But I've used that illustration so many times. But if I just do enough or sell enough Girl Scout cookies, I'm in. Yeah. And it's not that. Is God
right
taking it? I get in because of him, because I was the follower, the sheep, the one who followed him.
Right.
I wasn't the goat who did my own thing.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this question. Can Christians be judgy?
Okay, I was just going to land at this same place because I was thinking while this conversation was happening that the more I think about it, the less people actually care about having like an ultimate judge of God. And the more they care about the Christian who's standing and saying, well, I'm not going to do this. I have the choice and I'm not going to do this because this is going to, for whatever reason, they're firm in that belief that that's going to separate them from God or that's like a hellish activity, whatever it is. And then in that, they have an air of, I'm judging you because you are choosing to do that. And I think that is probably what more people don't like about the idea of Christianity is the people who are judgmental because they're standing firm in whatever they believe.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's bad. I think it's bad because of the responder, not because of the judger most of the time. Like I feel like if it's coming from a place of understanding the gospel, the reality is when I communicate to somebody and I'm just like, well, hey, here's the thing, man, you're going to suffer if you cheat on your wife. It's not going to go well for you long term. Like, oh, don't judge me, man. And it's like, well, and here's the thing, that is true even if I'm cheating on my wife. Like the truth of the statement is the truth of the statement. Like you may not like to hear it, but it's still true. And so I think one of the things that people, I think one of the issues that I would have with kind of the religious person being this voice of morality for everybody else is that they pretend like they're not also struggling in the morality. Like the truth of the statement is, if you lie, it's going to be bad, but that doesn't mean I don't lie. It doesn't mean that I don't have the same tendencies, that I don't have the same lusts and greeds and prides and angers. It's just recognizing, like, when I see it in you, and maybe I'm struggling with lust and you're struggling with anger, and I call out your anger, that doesn't mean I'm better than you. It's just, hey, I'm seeing the anger and I know where it leads you.
What we don't like is the idea of somebody being hypocritical.
Right.
And hypocritical, you have to read that in the right way.
Yeah.
Like, hypocritical doesn't mean that, like, if I say I'm going to follow God and I make mistakes, that it doesn't mean that.
Right.
Because that's everybody.
Right.
Right? I mean, we all say, I love my family.
Yeah.
We all yell at them. Right? Right? We all like, forget to care for them. Yeah. we do those. We do dumb things that we say, yes, I believe this is important, and we do the dumb thing.
Okay.
What hypocritical means is that I'm setting up to a standard that I can't personally meet.
Right.
That I'm going to say, I'm good at this already, but you're not.
Right.
Right. That's the problem with the people that were not follow the Pharisees, right? Is they portrayed themselves as better than everybody else, when reality was they were fellow strugglers.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let me throw out another word that we don't like.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Injustice. There's something about injustice that, man, I don't know what it is. But when it's not right, it just drives me crazy. Okay, here's my most recent. Okay. I'm going to go visit my family in Austin. My son and his new wife live in Austin. So we book an Airbnb in Austin. Okay. All right? 2 days after I book it, paid the money, they send me this list of house rules. And on the house rules is, you can't invite anybody into your house, or we will charge you $50. You have to pay $50 a day for each individual person that comes to visit you. Or if we catch you, it's $2,000. And don't try to pull it over our eyes because we have cameras everywhere and recording devices. I'm reading this and I'm freaking out, right?
Oh, that's
what my
so
kids
funny.
would say.
Right? Like, okay, for one, really? I told you in the first email that I was here to visit my son. We can't have him over to the house.
Right. Yeah.
And secondly, you have cameras everywhere?
Right.
Well, he told you.
Right.
Yeah.
There just felt like this injustice to me.
Right.
And I reached out to Airbnb and I tried to get them to cancel. And I reached out to these people and said, please cancel me. I don't want to stay at your house.
Right.
because it just felt unjust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I don't know if you have moments where you just feel like you have been treated without justice.
Oh, well, I know that my kids say, like, every other day, it's not fair. And
Right.
it
Yeah.
kind of makes us go crazy.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you go crazy when they're like, they only had 5 minutes of reading and I had to do 15. They only had to do...
I'm the it's not fair parent. You know, like that was my mom. That was me.
Yeah.
Life's not fair. Like
Yeah.
that's like I'm that parent. Like I've told you guys a story. Should I tell the milkshake story again? Like what?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can tell the milkshake story.
Like we were coming home from church. I don't remember why. I think it was maybe something in the message that tweaked me or something. Like I was like, I don't know that I agree with that or some. Probably that's typical.
Yeah, that's every message with Jonathan.
Yeah. So we're driving home. We were leading worship at a church. It was like a 2-hour drive to get to the church. And so we're driving home, and I just get this crazy idea to I'm gonna teach a lesson to the kids. I don't even know that they remembered it. It was a big lesson for me even. And so we pulled off at McDonald's, and I bought one large milkshake. And we had the 3 kids in the back, and I handed it to Asher. And I said, "This is for you."
I swore you told me it was for Talia.
No, it was for Asher.
Okay.
And I said, you can share it or you cannot share it. It's up to you. You don't have to share it. So, I mean, it's a large milkshake. It's more than he needs.
Yeah.
And he shared it. I think he got more of it. And it was like, the whole point was to teach him, like, fair doesn't exist. Good exists. Bad exists. Fair doesn't exist. I want to be, and in my life, and I had this discussion with my family on Monday night, my life has been unfair in my favor in every way. Mm-hmm. And I want them to see life as that. Like life isn't fair, but is it good? Mm-hmm. You know, like, because typically when somebody's saying it's not fair, what they're saying is take something from somebody else and give it to me. Uh-huh. And that is just like, that is a never ending fight.
Mm-hmm.
I would, so, this is a story that I've told. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and John Wooden were very good friends. Mm-hmm. And John Wooden chose to live his life in such a way where he saw good in everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Kareem didn't have that option. Mm-hmm. And they were walking into a coffee shop, and they just won the championship, and this elderly woman walked up to Kareem, and she congratulated them both. And then she said to Coach Wooden, I can't believe they made N-words this big.
Right.
Hmm.
And Kareem said, I didn't have the privilege of seeing good in everybody because when I shot free throws, the entire Oregon State fan base was chanting the N-word at me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
There is an unfairness to that rankles me. Mm-hmm. And there are moments like this when something happens that's completely unfair, doesn't measure up, that there's something deep inside of us that bothers us. Mm-hmm. So what do you want in God? Mm-hmm. He is a God of justice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't ever want anybody, like there's a lot of people that don't want the death penalty because there's always somebody that got got the death penalty that was innocent.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is one of the most terrible things to even think
but
about.
But I do believe that we're okay with people dying for their sins. Because if you watch any Die Hard movie, you want bad things to happen to that bad guy because he's hurting people.
Yeah. Or we watched the Flash.
Okay. Right.
And the amount of times that they would like capture some villain that was like killing people all over the city, and they're like, we're not going to be like him and kill him. We're going to put him in this prison, and he's got superpowers to get out of the prison. I'm like, just take the guy out, man. Use the kryptonite or whatever you got. Like,
right. And there are wars. You know, the whole Hitler thing. If you saw Hitler walking down the street, would you kill him? You know, knowing that you would save all these people. We're a little hesitant to play that role, but when it's a movie, we know because we just saw him.
Yeah,
we just saw him kill 7 people, so we're okay with that.
Right.
God is a God of justice. He sees everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's capable of judging that.
Right.
But what you have to understand is what he really is ultimately judging is not, did you do enough good things? Were you a nice enough person?
Right.
It comes down to the sheep and the goats. Are you going to follow him?
Right.
Or are you going to not follow him?
Right.
Are you going to choose to believe in him or not choose to believe in him? It really comes down to that. Because he wants to populate his heaven with those people that believe in him and have a relationship with him and have chosen to follow the way that he wants to follow,
Right.
rather than just living for themselves. Because if you populate with people that are just living for themselves, then all kinds of hurt and pain are going to happen.
Yeah.
So if God is going to be, you don't like the word judgmental, but maybe we hate words like slavery worse because we want to have our freedom. And we hate words like injustice worse. So, I don't know. Does this answer anything?
Yeah, I think that I think it's something that is easy to wrestle with, like from the time you're young all the way through. But I think so much of it is getting to the place of being okay with not being the person who's in charge and judging, and knowing that we do have a just God, and just like you said, Jonathan, of just getting to the point every day of being like, yeah, but I'm not worthy and I can't do it without you. And our kids, we also got a little bit irritated when they say like, it's not fair, it just doesn't feel fair. And there's so many things that are true about that statement, but in the reverse, it's not fair that you were born in the United States and somebody else had to be born in another country. They got no say in that.
Right.
It's not fair that you happen to be born to two parents who like are married and both care about you. And it's not fair that you have rights to education. And it's not fair that you have flowing water from your sink. And
Right. And I don't think there should be the tricky part is I think a lot of people, when they like later on in life, like you meet people who go to a third world country or whatever, and they kind of get bitter because there's this idea that they thought that there was some sense of fairness and that they deserved what they had.
Right.
And then they wind up going, like they'll go to Africa, some of these places in Africa where it's like extreme poverty. They'll spend a little bit of time there and then they'll come back and they'll see us complaining about the fact that, my Ferrari won't start. And we're like, do you realize, and that's extreme end of luxury, of course,
right.
But that idea of like, we think we are entitled to what we have. And when you get around some of these other people who don't have it, you're just like, oh, I'm never going to complain again. And it wears off after.
It's funny because my wife has taken people on trips all around the world.
Right.
And she sees them loving and caring for these kids. And then you fly back into Miami.
Right.
And you go to the food court where you're waiting for your food.
I can't believe they put pickles on my
right,
burger.
Exactly. It switches. It happens so quickly. I think when you look at God as judge, the place you need to figure out is he a benevolent one or not?
Right.
Is the reason why he's doing this for our best interests or not? Does he understand all the circumstances? Is he's the only one that does?
Right.
So that, I think we need to get to that place. The other place we need to get our arms around is, what is our role as Christian people? Can we judge? And I want to say this,
Okay.
that in a certain way, absolutely 100%.
Right.
We have to be able to know right from wrong and to be able to judge whether this is right or whether this is wrong.
Right.
We have to be okay with it. Our world doesn't like that.
Yeah.
Our world wants to say, you know what? This is my truth. Right?
Yeah.
I just believe my truth. But we believe that there's a God who set up the world to run a certain way, and there are truths and there are things that are not true.
Right.
Do you know what I think that's hard about that, though? I think that some people, it is common that people are Christian and they're adamant in their beliefs, and they think that it's because that is the right way. And there are so many things in this world that are not black and white. In like just parenting alone, for example, I choose to do something this way because this is what I believe is the most loving and kind and going to help my kids know and learn about Jesus. But I could be wrong. Like, there's nothing that says that just because I'm a Christian and I'm trying my best to like follow the lead that God is taking me on whatever path, there's nothing to say that I'm doing it right. That I'm doing it right all the time.
It's this idea of the best way. It's probably not the best way. Like, one person's doing it the best way.
But I think
they probably don't know who they are, but like everybody else who isn't doing it that way is still doing it fine.
So I think that's the thing that feels hard about like Christians in being like in judging. Like, I think there are certainly things in the Bible that tell us like, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. And yes, it's best to follow that way of doing things. But I think that there's a lot of things in this world that are not a black and white answer. And there's probably things that you were convinced of when you were in high school or college that now you're like, wow, I didn't see the whole picture. I didn't see the whole world. I didn't see, you know. And so I think that's the part that kind of rubs me the wrong way about like Christians being judgmental. I think you should judge your own life and your family and the people that you have committed to being accountable with and saying, hey, I don't know that that's the best decision for you because X, Y, or Z. But I don't know that it's always fair to say, like, this is who we are and I can always judge right and wrong because I can't. Like, I fail. I don't do it right every time. And that's what I believe is, like, the gift of having an ultimate just God is that I don't have to be the judge.
Right.
And I think that in parenting mom guilt, I think it happens all the time that moms are adamant that their way is the right way. Send your kids to school when they're 2. Keep them home all the way until they're 5.
And they'll tell
sleep
you about
train
it.
them. Don't sleep train them. Give them a bottle. Only breast. Like, you get so firm in your ways, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you know that it's right all the time. You're just doing the best with what you have at any given moment. And I think that we have to be okay saying, this is what I believe. And God, am I going the right direction? But it's not my place to say whether she's going the right direction.
Right.
If it's somebody that's in your family or that's in a small group or that you like are committing to hold each other accountable to and they come to you with that, I think that's different. But I just think...
We have a hard time with people that want to judge who we are and what we do without being in relationship to us.
Right.
Here's the verse. I just go back to this over and over again. And Paul writes this, what business is it of mine to judge those outside the church?
Right.
Yeah.
It really isn't. What I'm trying to say is I believe that there is right and wrong, and I believe that God knows it. I'm trying to learn it as best as I can. I don't know it all completely, but there are certain things that he doesn't stutter on.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, he pretty much wants me to stay married and only sleep with my own wife. He's pretty clear on some of these things that but we like to make it, well, whatever your truth is, whatever fits you, whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I can buy into that kind of lifestyle. But I don't know that I need to teach everybody outside of the truth that my lifestyle is right.
Right.
Because what I feel is that life will teach it.
Right. Well, and maybe, like, that's the thing, too, is that maybe the way that we do teach it isn't by being nosy about how everybody else is doing things. Like, there's something about what you just said is a way of teaching something. It's one thing to have a platform where you speak publicly and to say, I'm convinced that God doesn't stutter on this issue and that he wants me to stay married to my wife and to sleep only with my wife. Like, like that, it's a statement, but it's also teaching people because there's a lot of people who aren't going to agree with that. So it's a teaching statement. And in a sense, the statement itself is a judgment on people who follow a different pattern of life. But it's a different thing for me to be like, you know what, I need to make a phone call right now and go talk to somebody about a relationship that they're in, when I don't have a relationship with them and I don't have the platform in their life to be able to say that.
Right.
And because I think there's something healthy about, and I think a lot of times we get in trouble here, is we don't actually think about the result that we're after when we're making our judgment. We just think about, I'm right and I want to win an argument and I want to look good and more spiritual than you. As where like if I just call up some dude who's living with his girlfriend and you know and they got a relationship that shouldn't be the way that it is, and I just call them up and just like, hey, just want you to know you're in sin and you really need to get this right. Like, that's not going to produce the result that I'm after.
So I found out, I didn't know this. My wife does. She follows Facebook more than I do. We have all kinds of hate mail for 10 steps further. And one of them was this.
Funny.
Okay.
One guy said, well, you want to meet people wherever they're at, in their spiritual journey.
Yeah.
What you really need to do is just tell them to repent.
Right.
In some ways, that's this attitude, right?
I didn't know John the Baptist was on Facebook,
Like
but
if I just yell at him and say repent.
yeah, that's going to work better.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fill in this sentence. We'll close with this.
Okay.
I'll be the final word.
Okay.
'Cause that's how I like it. Help me.
Okay.
By this, everyone will know that you're my disciples. If you judge everybody,
No.
if you tell everybody what's right and wrong,
No.
if you are the voice of wisdom for everybody else's life,
Yeah. No.
what's the answer?
That you love one another.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to be the representative that God wants you to be.
Yeah. There's John Corson's thing is he said it was a very eye-opening moment for him when he realized my job is to love them, his job is to judge them. He said previously I thought my job was to judge them, his
Right.
job was to
Yeah.
love them. And that's it, right? Like it's just like, no, we're all in this together. We're all desperate
Yes.
for and I feel like that's the best place. Just get to that place, like recognize within yourself that you too are desperate.
Yeah.
And all of your judgments will change.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
I like it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us for these last 10 steps. If you'd like to join us for another journey, or if you know someone else who's on this walk, subscribe to our podcast at 10 Steps Further on iTunes, or simply search 10 Steps Further on your podcast app. And if you'd like to be part of the conversation with a question or a comment or a criticism or even a wisecrack, look us up on Facebook. We've created a Facebook group where you can be part of the conversation. We'll see you next time. I didn't know where to go from.